Владимир Владимирович Путин.
Спасибо. Если кто-то вознамерится вмешаться в происходящие события со стороны, то они должны знать, да, и будут создавать для России неприемлемые для нас угрозы стратегического характера, они должны знать, что наш ответно-встречные удары будут молниеносными, быстрыми. У нас есть для этого все инструменты, такие, которыми не может сейчас похвастаться никто, а мы хвастаться не будем. Была правильной и своевременной.
So, if you took a look at the clip, President Putin gave a warning to the US and NATO forces. That was, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So I will come back to that because what I'm doing here today will be giving a SitRep about the situation in Ukraine, and then I'll be doing an analysis. I will get to the analysis later. Right now, let's get into the SitRep. Before I go into the SitRep, I'll ask you guys, love the guys that have signed up with us and have subscribed. Please continue to do that and support the channel. I will try to improve on the style from the style perspective. And to help us with the algorithms, because YouTube doesn't like us, and I don't know why, but to help us with the algorithms, please hit the like button. And by all means, comment as well. So Russia is right now grinding down the Ukrainians. I mean, it's brutal. What the Russians are doing now in this phase is they are attacking the Ukrainian forces with artillery, massive artillery bombardments in the east. Remember, Ukraine got the most combat ready forces in this area, and the Russians are just grinding them. It's even made easier by the fact that the Ukrainian command is allowing these guys to sit there, and they're giving a standing order to fight to the death. It doesn't make sense. It's just putting men's lives in danger for no reason. Whereas if they had people to be able to come to the aid for a counterattack, then you can see the reason why. But that's not what's happening. They're allowing these guys to sit in this area and they're just getting decimated, right? So Popasnaya, one of the towns in the area, was taken yesterday. Yes, Popasnaya. And the Russian forces, one of the things they're trying to do, they're trying to collect to capture these areas, Slavyansk, that's a city, and Kramatorsk. If the Ukrainians are smart enough, it would be good for them to pull back to the city areas as they have better chance to fight there. But most of these areas here that they have the standing order to maintain. Those are steps, right? Flat ground, forest area where the Russians can just brutally destroy them. I will go ahead and show you some of the little clips about how the Russians are doing with them. So hold on a bit. Here is some of the terrain. Here's the terrain that the Ukrainians are fighting in. If you notice, these are Russian forces and patrolling all the defensive territory that the Ukrainians were at before, and the Russians just devastated them with artillery. And then once they devastated them with the artillery, then they send these forces to clear, and probing forces to clear them out. And it's just unnecessary. You don't have artillery. They have destroyed most of your artillery, and yet you're letting your men stay there instead of pulling back. And this is all to maintain a propaganda value because it makes no sense. And that's why the Russians are taking their time. Uh, the Ukrainians are saying that they've got to stand and fight. So the Russians say, okay, you want to be like that? Say hello to my little friend. And when they do that, they just devastate them with artillery. I mean, just massive artillery bombardment that just destroy them. And then some probing forces come and clear them out. So the Russians are not yet, and I think the Russians are doing this purposefully. They are being purposefully slow so as to drain Ukrainian manpower, to make them understand that there is nothing the U.S. or NATO, there's nothing that U.S. or NATO can send you that will help you. They're making sure that they understand that there's no Wunderwaffen, right? There's no Wunderwaffen coming from Germany. Wunderwaffen is wonder weapon in German. So they're making them understand that we will drain you, we'll drain your strength, we'll drain your manpower, we'll kill them. If they decide to stay in the fight, they will die where they stand. That's what the Russians are doing. So you see, take a look at this terrain. It would be good when when forces don't have, when you don't have enough forces to launch counterattacks, as these guys are trying to surround you and stuff like that. It would be preferable for you to pull back towards the city and have better options because then the Russians cannot just destroy the whole city easily like that. They have to go in because they don't want to destroy the population. So, but if you're fighting in open fields like this, I mean, it's over, man. Here's a view here of Ukrainian mothers on the west because Ukraine is running out of uh, they're running out of manpower now, so they're tapping into the reserves from the west, old men, boys, and stuff like that. And so these mothers are just not having it. They're tired. They're not going to sit there and let their kids just be sent to their death. So they're attacking the mobilization office, and more of these type of things are happening in Ukraine. But again, Western media will not tell you this, right? They're just destroying these people. The people are getting tired with this. They don't want their kids going to war and dying. And what are they dying for? They're dying because some other country wants to destroy some other country. It's not you fighting for your own country. They're not. But your people are dying because they want to destroy Russia. Dying for some other people long historical dream to destroy Russia and the Russian people. And so these people are fighting and they're not tolerating that. Here's another sad clip for some mother, some family. This is a fellow Marine. Um, I mean, being a Marine, I can't say that I don't feel something about it, but this is someone who decided to go and decided they wanted to kill Russians. So sorry as I am for his parents, why was this necessary? And he left family, he left kids, young kids.
Willie's mother first confirming his death to CNN, saying he was killed Monday while working with a private military contractor. The news, a devastating blow for his hometown of Orange County, New York, where he once served as a volunteer firefighter.
A lot of kids his age, they don't understand what they want to do in life, and he seemed to figure it out at a young age.
The county executive writing in part, "We will never forget Willie's bravery and sacrifice." His wife Brittany telling Fox News he went there wanting to help people. He had always felt that that was his main mission in life, adding they have a 7-month-old son who will
7-month-old
his
son.
father.
And he
For a
died for
family,
what?
Willie lived
Trying to
in
destroy
City.
Russia. Meanwhile, the Chechens are hard. There's a wounded Chechen soldier still got his spirit. The Chechens are hard chargers, man. And it's the Chechens, along with the LPR, that seized Popasnaya. All right. So that's where things. Now let me go into some of the. Let me go into the analysis that I wanted to bring forth to you guys. I want to go back first over phase one. So let me do a recap of phase one, and then go into an analysis of phase one because it's interesting. So Russians came over the border. On February 24th. The Russians decided to launch the special military operations. Now, Ukraine has, and I know they make it seem, the U.S. media make it seem like Ukraine is this, like this is a David and Goliath situation. I guess you could say to some extent, but Ukraine is no shrinking violet, right? Ukraine, if you consider that Russia and Turkey are part of Europe, Ukraine had the third largest military in Europe. If you pull out, if you are pulling out Turkey and Russia, then I think Ukraine will be about the first. The standing military was 265,000 to start with. The reserve is about another 235,000. Then they mobilize about 100 and something, I think 165,000 for territorial defense. So when the Russians were going to attack them, the Russians decided. Remember, Russia aim was is to secure the Donetsk and Lugansk republics in the east. But you can't just go and attack the east, especially with such large force, because they all going against such large force. They all will converge onto the east to be able to stop that assault. So the Russians use maneuver warfare. And as I previously told you guys, what the Russians did is they attacked on multiple fronts. On the one, they put in the VDV, which is the Russian airborne, did an assault into Gostomel Airport. So while the Ukrainians were reeling from that, they attacked over the border in the Chernigov area, attacked from Belarus also. They attacked Sumy, and then they came from Kharkov. Then from the south, they came from Crimea, went over the border to Kherson, and then moved in the direction of Donetsk, also from this area. That was maneuver warfare. The attack at Kiev was a feint. So those VDV forces were there, and then in 24 hours, the forces coming from Belarus and in the Chernobyl area were able to come and de-block that unit. Then the Russians came, blocked Chernigov, blocked Sumy, and then with those forces they came from the east and put pressure on Kiev. When they did that, what the Ukrainians did is they threw men into the defense of Kiev. I would say about maybe 200 and some old thousand men were put into Kiev to defend Kiev. The Russians then kept pushing the pressure, but the Russians only had about around 40 to 50,000 men and pressuring Kiev. So it is a fact that the Russians were not trying to seize Kiev. What they were trying to do was to draw all those forces to Kiev. They drew all those forces to Kiev, and then they went to town destroying artillery, destroying anti-aircrafts, destroying aircrafts, and stuff like that. So that's what happened in the Kiev area. In the south, they moved towards they came from Crimea and took a left going to the west towards and seized Kherson. What that did is that any forces in Nikolaev and Odessa area, they blocked them. Then the Russian had forces here threatening in the sea, where it made Odessa honest. They knew that they had to worry about a possible amphibious landing here. In fact, during the first days, they were so confused they thought forces actually landed in Odessa. So that secured those forces there. Then in Kharkov, they came down, and from the east of Kharkov, they blocked that. So those forces in Kharkov couldn't go. But then they threatened Kharkov from the north as well. So now those were, again, probing attacks in Kharkov area. So that the forces in Kharkov, they got to worry about protecting that city. Then the Russians came over and started coming through here. And then the Donetsk People's Republic hit out at Mariupol to seize Mariupol. And then the forces that came from Crimea and went east took Melitopol and pushed towards Zaporizhia. All right? So that's what they did. They did that feint, and then they destroyed the Ukrainian oil, the gas, and their artillery and transportation. They destroyed all that. So now, once they had phase one had taken care of all those things, the Russians now pulled back out of there, and now they're going to focus on here. Remember, they were not trying to seize Kiev. The Russians are masters of war. There is no way they would go to a city of almost 3 million people with 200,000 men in there and then decide to take about only 40 to 50,000 men. No, they were not. It was a feint. That's what they did. Now, what's interesting about this is that within 10 days, and the empires of lies is because they have the airwaves, they own the airwaves, they make it, and this particular fact is being obscured. But eventually there will be another David Glenn, Colonel David Glenn, who will come and show what the Russians did. Ukraine had a European army, or standing European army, very capable force in the greater Ukrainian army. What the Russians did within 10 days, the Russians were able to dismantle this integration, destroy their command and control, destroy the fuel source, destroy their armor, destroy their artillery, destroy all that Ukraine now has a force that cannot support one another. They got a lot of forces in Kiev and in these other areas, but they have no ability to be able to support the forces here. And mind you, the forces here were the main combat ready forces. About 100,000 of them were in this area, in the Donbass area, because they were actually preparing to go and attack. So it is interesting. I mean, this is a feat of military, and that hasn't been seen in a while. This is modern warfare. The Russians, in 10 days, were able to destroy the Ukrainian army's cohesiveness, the Ukrainian military's cohesiveness, totally destroyed, such that now they can't even launch an attack above a battalion level. They cannot launch a counterattack above a battalion level from anywhere. So these guys are isolated by themselves. the Russians can take the time to defeat them. But what's more about this is that the Russians did not just destroy the Ukrainian military, because the operational staff for the Ukrainian forces were American generals. Everybody know now for a fact that U.S. generals are running the show. Some of them are in Lvov area, and they are running the operational staff for Ukraine. So this was American operational doctrine, NATO operational doctrine that was destroyed in 10 days, right? So they should tell you why these guys are pissed with Russia right now. They are very pissed with Russia. So one of the things they seem to have wanted to try to do, wanted to get Romania and Poland to come and create Poland to pretend that they're coming in to do some kind of peacekeeping operations. Though the Poles themselves, they actually won Galicia back, this area. They won it back. So they were coming to pretend that they were bringing forces to do peacekeeping operation. And then they wanted Romania to then either with the help of Moldova or against Moldova attack and then threaten Transnistria here. So Putin's warning was very essential. That warning you saw at the beginning of the clip. It was very essential for that, because he was letting them know. There are a couple of things he said there. One, our weapons are, we have weapons, these weapons we can brag about that no one has, but we'll not just brag about them. We will use it. Because if the Poland think they can come through here, first of all, you're going to come into the conflict with our air power. If you come in with our air power, the Russian will just decimate your columns here. Just destroy it. And if you bring air power, then you come in the war. And the Russians not standing for that. So that's why he said, any strategic, you guys try to be a part of this war with any, to create a strategic threat for us, we'll put hands on you. And this is part of the reasons why, if you notice in this war, the Russians only using their whole force they brought for this war is around 200,000 men, of which they only have committed about 190,000 to the front against a force of 600,000. But they have now separated that force and made them not cohesive, so that they cannot help these 100,000 men that are in the Donbass. So now this is what you call defeat in detail. They will go here, take their time, and they will defeat that unit there. When they finish defeating that unit, they might have a choice now to push to take Kharkov, or they might push to take Nikolaev and Odessa. They will have the choice. Whichever area they choose, they will go. My bet is that they might go more for Kharkov City, because as they push from here to seize Zaporizhia and Dnipropetrovsk, they will be able to bring more men to bear in close, or maybe just close off Kharkov totally, and then come back and focus on taking the south, because Ukraine will not have the south again. They will not have access to sea, so that economy is going to be destroyed after this stuff. Right. So that's what the Russians are doing. Another thing we found out so far is that all those weapons that the U.S. been sending, I mean, we already knew that they were not going to be effective. They were not really going to be effective, because they are just tactical weapons. They can't do anything. The Russians got counter for them. The TB2s, the Bayraktar TB2s, yeah, they might cause a little kill here, a little kill there, stuff, but they're not going to change the outcome of the war. But what we are learning now is that how ineffective those weapons were. Not just because they are just tactical weapons. Now it's because their capability was overstated. Take, for instance, the javelins. you will notice that CNN will put out there this video of a Russian column being hit. But you will notice that after they hit, they hit, then they cut the video. They don't continue the video to show what happened. What you will see is that when that stuff go and hit the Russian tank, where you will notice the puff of smoke, that's if the reactive armor, the electronic reactive armor on the tank blowing up the javelin missiles. So that tank, there are reports now with a lot of tanks showing that javelin Russian tanks have taken about 4 to 5 hits from those javelins and in-laws, and still smiling and going, still going into battle, still fighting in the battle. So if you see that tip, you will notice that after the bomb, they attacked the Russian column, they took defensive action. Those tanks went into stagger columns and started taking defensive action. You will notice that the tanks that were hit did not stop moving. And then they feed cuts. And then the CNN people will give their own interpretation of what happened later so that you can see for yourself. So this is sad. I mean, it's the empire of lies. If these people were to tell you, if you were sitting in a monsoon rain and they were to tell you that it's raining, I would tell you, you still needed to look up to be sure. But this is nonsense, right? And, you know, there are people who are saying that the U.S. There's a threat of nuclear war and stuff. There is a threat of nuclear war. It is higher than it was before. That to be sure. But here's the reason why I don't think that will happen. And again, I'm not an intelligence officer for NATO, the US, or the Russians. So this is just my assessment of the stuff. Why would that happen? NATO cannot tangle with Russia. NATO is not ready. The US cannot tangle with Russia right now. The US is not, our forces are not oriented for that. We've been fighting 20 years or so, small countries where we're kicking their butt. Where we're not ready to come, this particular war with Ukraine, the US couldn't wage this war right now. If they were to be the one trying to fight Ukraine, they couldn't wage this war right now. We're not oriented for this stuff where you're fighting a force that has an army, has capable anti-aircraft artillery and stuff like that. We can fight this war. So that alone means that we will not get involved in this. We will do all the stuff about sending weapons and whatnot, and that is just one big money laundering scheme and way to shift to transfer money to the rich. But they're not going to get involved in there. Because here's the thing Russia said. I don't remember the date, but one of the things Russia did was to update their national defense policy. And they said that a couple of times Western military have come into Russia and destroyed Russia, almost destroyed their existence. That's from the Napoleonic Wars. Some of the attack they did that was done in World War I, and more importantly, the attempt from Hitler during World War II. Russia said there's not going to be a fourth time that happens to fight on any other war will not be fight on Russian territory. So this year, I promise you, NATO and the US does not want to tangle with the Russians. Because first of all, Russia is winning this war, so they're not going to attack Ukraine with no nuclear weapons that the U.S. presses say it's all nonsense. They're not going to attack them. But if NATO does try to attack Russia or come involved in this thing, yes, those NATO countries, they are going to get tactical nuclear weapons that will wipe up some of their whole divisions. That I can promise you. And they know that. And they don't want to try that. So that's why they're not going to get involved into this war. That's why, uh, as much as I think the threat has gone up, I don't think we can worry that there will be nuclear war. Uh, I could be wrong. Anyways, this is Sankara for the Upriver Crawfish. Again, please click the like button, comment, and I will try now doing at least once every week, giving an update. Though things are going to be a little bit more slow now. Like I said, the Russians were defeating detail, but the Russians want to do this as slowly as possible because the Ukrainians, actually, before I end, let me talk about another part. The Russians want to do this slowly because the Ukrainians, their big flapping gums, uh, Alexei Arestovich stated that, yes, they understand that they can lose Donbass, and they will lose Donbass, and they will not, but the war will still not end because all the American weapons will come for them to equip new forces who they would then, new manpower who they would then send to go and attack on the east. So that's why the Russians are taking their time here. And that's why the Russians are using only around 190,000 men in this operation. Because now, when they have cleared these areas and these people keep bringing people here, they will just devastate them. And this would be, the Russia will be able to sustain this because they don't have most of the military there. And it would be more like a training mission. They will rotate troops for training. So instead of forces having these massive training exercises, they will actually go into war. They will rotate those forces out, going into war, and that 190,000 troops is be sustainable because right now the Russians are not doing the bleeding anymore. It's the Ukrainians that are doing the bleeding. So all the Russians doing is just bombing them. That's why the Russians are taking it slow. It's just destroying them with artillery, and then rolling over them. Destroy them with artillery, then sends few troops to go and roll over them in a recon by fire type operation. And then with different positional battles, that's what's all happening. So the Russians are not taking a lot of casualties now. So at some point in time in this war, it would be wherein it would be very sustainable for the Russians, but continuously deadly for the Ukrainians. So, as Arestovich said, I mean, granted, when most of those weapons that the West will send, they're going to get destroyed, and there are a lot of old weapons. The funny thing is, the weapons that the Ukrainians used that were more effective were their own weapons. The Western weapons were not effective at all. But I will say there is one effective weapon that the U.S. has that did work for the Ukrainians. That's the propaganda and the psychological warfare. That has worked because it made Ukrainian troops stand up and fight, and also the fact that the U.S. Made sure that they put for every there was one Nazi in for every 10 Ukrainian soldiers, so in the different units, so that they cannot run, they cannot desert. So those help the Ukrainians. If anything, those were the most effective thing that the West did for the Ukrainian military. Outside of that, the weapons were nothing. They were trash. And this is why they know the score. I promise you the US knows the true score. But they're going to keep lying. Too bad for Ukraine. They're going to feel it. So, again, thank you. Please support the channel and click the like button so that we're able to bring you, to support the channel, and so that these people can use the algorithms to block us off, and we're able to bring you more of these. I will try again, like I said, weekly, and bring the information to you. Things will be a little slower. It might not see much advances because the Russians are taking their time and they're just killing these Ukrainians. About 100 or more a day are getting killed. It's sad, but that's what they call for. They want to serve another country's goal to destroy Russia. Russia will not be destroyed. For the Russians, this is existential. They don't play around with this thing. They will not be destroyed, and they will win this war. And the U.S. just can't do anything. On the economic front, the Russians are succeeding as well. So, yeah, thank you. Out.